All right, in this video I want to discuss government intervention in the foreign exchange market. Now, what are some of the reasons for government intervention? Well, one is smoothing exchange rate movements. If the central bank is concerned that its economy will be affected by abrupt movements in its home currency's value, it may attempt to smooth the currency movements over time. So instead of a lot of ups and downs in the currency's value, it may intervene to smooth those out. They may be establishing implicit exchange rate boundaries. So some central banks attempt to maintain their home currency rates within some unofficial or implicit boundaries. Okay, they don't want the currency to be too strong or too weak because each has implications for the domestic economy as well as for trade balances. And they may be responding to temporary disturbances. A central bank may intervene to insulate a currency's value from a temporary disturbance. So there may be some crisis in a country or some international crisis that's causing the currency's value to fluctuate a lot, and they may jump in to try and mitigate that. All right, there are a couple of ways to intervene. One is referred to as direct intervention. And what direct intervention essentially means is the Fed is trying to actually directly impact exchange rates. For example, the Fed in the U.S. can intervene directly by exchanging dollars that it holds as reserves for other foreign currencies in the foreign exchange market. What this essentially does is affect either the demand for the foreign currency or the supply of the foreign currency. By purchasing the foreign currency, the Fed is increasing the demand for the foreign currency, thus causing the currency to rise in value, or likewise, the dollar to fall in value. If the Fed desires to strengthen the dollar, it can exchange foreign currencies for dollars in the exchange market. This increases the supply of foreign currency and causes the foreign currency to fall in value and the dollar to rise. So we can take a look at a couple of graphs here. Okay, if the Fed exchanges dollars for pounds, they're basically buying pounds in the foreign market and they're increasing the demand. And we know from basic supply and demand theory that if demand increases, price rises. And the exchange rate is really just the price of one currency in terms of another. So here we have pounds and the price of pounds in dollars. So this shift in demand causes the exchange rate to rise from $1.21 to $1.23. So that means the pound has appreciated, right? It's worth more, which likewise means the dollar has depreciated. If the Fed exchanges pounds for dollars, then there's going to be an increase in the supply of pounds, which causes the pound to depreciate and the dollar to appreciate. So this is the case where the supply curve shifts down, and when supply increases, what happens to price? Price falls. So here the pound depreciates, which is the same as the dollar appreciating. In terms of direct intervention, there's a reliance on reserves. Okay, central banks will hold reserves of foreign currencies and they will use them to intervene. When a country has real difficulties, they run into the possibility of running out of reserves. Okay, you can only buy the other currency if you have enough of your own currency. You can only sell so much of the foreign currency if you actually have it. So, it depends on what sort of reserves they have, at their own central bank. In terms of direct intervention, there are a couple of definitions or a couple of ways to deal with this, so-called non-sterilized versus sterilized intervention. When the Fed intervenes in the foreign exchange market without adjusting for the change in the money supply, it's engaging in a non-sterilized intervention. So because the money supply is going to change, this can impact domestic interest rates and impact the domestic economy. In a sterilized intervention, the Fed intervenes in the foreign exchange market and simultaneously engages in offsetting transactions in the Treasury securities market. So if they are increasing the number of dollars out there, they will be in the foreign exchange, or I'm sorry, they will be in the Treasury markets and engaging in activities to reduce the money supply. So they will be selling Treasury securities, which will take reserves or take dollars out of the system. Indirect intervention occurs when the government tries to control something that will influence exchange rates. So rather than directly impacting exchange rates, they're going to, for example, try and control interest rates, and interest rates can have an impact on exchange rates. And the argument is that if a country has higher interest rates, other people in other countries will want to invest in the country with the higher interest rate. They will need, for example, dollars. That will push up the demand for dollars and cause the dollar to strengthen. Okay, lowering interest rates will mean that people will wish to invest in other countries and will reduce the value of that currency. They can also use some sort of foreign exchange control, such as restrictions on the exchange of the currency. All right, some countries do not allow their currency to be exchanged in foreign markets. If you've traveled abroad, you may have been in countries where you are not allowed to take the currency out of the country. So there are a number of cases. Cuba, they may have gotten rid of it now. There was some discussion of it. Actually has two currencies, one for the people who live there, and sort of one for the people who are coming to visit. So they have two different currencies. I think they're trying to get rid of it, and as of this video time, it may have been they may have gotten rid of it. What's the impact of exchange rates on the economy? Okay, why do you want to impact exchange rates? A lot of times you will hear businesses, you'll hear world leaders talking about exchange rates. Well, a weak home currency, okay, which is the same as a strong foreign currency, can stimulate foreign demand for products because the cost of imports will be cheaper for foreigners. Okay, when your currency is weak, or when the other currency is strong, okay, so for example, it's easier if I give an example. If the pound is strong relative to the dollar, then it's cheap for people in Britain to purchase U.S. goods. It's cheap for them to come on vacation in the U.S. Likewise, a strong home currency can encourage consumers and corporations of the home country to buy goods from other countries because foreign goods will be cheaper in the home country. Again, if you're somebody who has traveled abroad, when the dollar is strong, if you happen to be a U.S. resident, you'll find that buying things in London or in France or in Australia may be cheaper because the dollar is very strong. When the dollar is very weak, things are more expensive in those foreign countries. So exchange rates are very important. Okay, they impact domestic businesses. Oftentimes you'll hear the auto industry in the United States talking about the dollar being too strong, which makes it too expensive for foreigners to buy U.S. cars, and makes it practical for U.S. residents to buy foreign cars because they are cheaper when you adjust for the exchange rate.